kind of want to talk about two different things. Well, two related things. Taking a taking a game too seriously and why that's so much fun, and egregores, the existence of gods in a fantasy setting, but especially in a fantasy role playing session setting, because that's mostly what I'm interested in, the setting and the play, and that's those two things are related. The first thing is the general point on taking things too seriously. There is something to be said for taking things too seriously as a bad thing. That's generally where you start getting into these excessively long deep dives into, say, Star Wars, Star Trek. There's the Wikipedia. There's a video by the guys at Red Letter Media where they go on and on about the all the all the Wikipedia stuff about Darth Vader's armor and his robot body, and how many details there are in that Wikipedia article, and they just laugh about it because yeah, it is the nerd desire to take things too seriously and gone too far. There's a certain point where it ceases to be creative and ceases to be interesting. It ceases to be creative or interesting to anyone. And it just is done out of a kind of a compulsive need for detail, a compulsive desire to have every question answered. But though, like everything, there's that negative side to taking things too seriously, and there's a positive side to it. Taking things too seriously is part of the fun for anyone who's into this sort of thing, who has an IQ, I think, north of 110, and it's just a sort of geeky thing to do, to want to know why things were done. You know, the all of nerd culture grew out of a sort of a desire to learn and have expansive knowledge about things and explore ideas, explore new ideas, explore old ideas. You know, the Dungeons and Dragons grew out of a wargaming culture, and part of that was these people who obsessed over the details of something like the Battle of Austerlitz, or obsessed over the details of something like the Battle of Kasserine Pass, or Stalingrad, or the Marne, or Crécy, or Agincourt, or I can go on. I can keep naming great historical battles, but that's what they had. An obsessive. They wanted to be. They wanted to study it so bad that they actually wanted to emulate it, even if the emulation became more of the fun for them than the actual learning. And and eventually that led to fantasy role playing, because that's what fantasy role playing is. It's the focus on the being in the action and seeing yourself as an individual within these grand narratives, within these grand stories. Being a warrior at the Battle of the Five Armies, or being, that's where it started. We wanted to be at the Battle of the Five Armies. Then they wanted to be one of the member of the Fellowship of the Rings. And they wanted to be Conan. Then they wanted to be Cudgel the Clever. Then they wanted to be Grey Mouser or Fafhrd. And once you dig into it, the big fun of the game is a big part of the fun of the game, especially for me, is to get into the details, get into the weeds, and that is the classic way that people got into the game. That's where the dungeon masters, which is to be fair, in D&D and fantasy role playing and classic role playing, it is the dungeon master that is the one doing most of this. I know there are players who can be very active in their game, but it is the dungeon master driving this, and and that's what I and that's what I have fun with. And there's another YouTuber, big time YouTuber who does a who does videos on the minutia and details of the Warhammer 40K setting, and he talks about that where he does these 2 hour videos that are extremely informative about something of the Warhammer 40K universe, whether it's the worst job to have in the Imperium, or it's the worst fate, or it's just a detailed biography of one of the various major characters, whether it's one of the Primarchs or one of the major powers of the among the various factions. I'm not the biggest Warhammer 40K fan, but I do like watching his videos because they are informative and they're fun, and it's just I'm never gonna be a player of Warhammer 40K. I have my hobby. I don't have enough money to do all my hobbies. I have my guitar and my amplifiers, and I have my role playing stuff. I don't even really have time for board games or money for board games. Certainly don't have enough money for Warhammer or Warhammer 40K and role playing games and guitars. And the other thing I would do would be guns. Shooting guns is a lot of fun, but ammunition's are pretty damn expensive. Guns have gotten very expensive. I don't have time or money to do that, and I do like just blasting things apart with gunfire. I do like the idea of target practice, but I'm not a hunter. I'm not gonna go out and hunt elk and this is Montana. It's actually a viable option in order to feed yourself for large periods of time, is to go out and kill game and butcher it and put it in a deep freezer, and you can feed yourself for quite a while on, say, 1 or 2 elk. You take it to somebody to butcher it for you, and you have a lot of processed food, a lot of meat out of that. Elk meat tastes pretty good. Not nearly as gamey as a lot of the other game meat. So I find it really pretty good. But what I have fun with is just like these nerdy hobbies. Just like with the nerdy hobbies with the guitar, I love studying the intricacies of theory, of music theory. Even though I am a sub-mediocre guitar player, I would say definitely a bad guitar player, almost. I'm not talented. I don't have the hands of a great guitar player. If you ever see, this is my left hand, if you ever see the hands of, say, even someone like Kurt Cobain, he has just gigantic long fingers. But I still take the instrument and music very seriously, and that is why I have fun. I have fun with that part. It's fun to think about compositional structures. It's fun to think about intervals, and it's fun to think about scales and harmonic and melodic concepts. And the same thing is true in role-playing games. And that brings me to egregores. The word egregore is relatively new to me. But I saw it in another video again, it's someone else on a YouTube not talking about role playing games, talking about Neil Gaiman's American Gods. And egregores is brought up. That is the concept of something coming out of the sort of collective unconscious, a sort of a God growing out of the minds of humans, not a God who's independent of humanity's relationship with it, an idea that's alive and becomes kind of a deific being. It's only possible use of egregore, but this is the one I'm using here, and I'm using it in the sense of world building. Do the gods in your setting have an existence outside of worship? And I mean this in the world building sense, not in the sense of at the table you're playing the role playing game. Other than the gods in the gods that the characters are worshiping and the gods perhaps that the villains are worshiping. Do they really matter? But more, what is the nature of your gods? Is it like in Lankmar, where on the road the road of gods, as you go further down the road, the temples become more powerful, and because there's more worshipers, and so the gods there are more powerful, and therefore they can have bigger temples, and therefore they have more worshipers, and they become more powerful. Their effect in the world is increased, but in a real way, as their worship declines, their power declines, and they become faint whispers of what they once were. And are the gods like that in your setting? There's kind of an implication both ways in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons that as a god has more worshippers, he becomes more powerful. That's implied to some degree in even first edition. It's definitely implied. It definitely seems to be the way it is in second edition Forgotten Realms. I'm not saying in second edition D&D in general, but AD&D in general. But in the Forgotten Realms, the more worshippers you have, the more powerful the god becomes. But also, the idea of there being gods who are not like that, who are not these manifest, who are but where do they come from? And in some people's question, and they say do they come from the collective unconscious? Do we come up with an idea like justice and a godlike being of justice, a god like Mitra in from Conan, and or a god like Tyr from the Forgotten Realms, or a god or a god like Torm from the Forgotten Realms, or Heronius from Greyhawk. Are they formed out of these ideas, or do they exist independently of these ideas? Are they adjusted by if you start adding, Tyr's the god of justice in the Forgotten Realms. That's not 100% his role. He's more of a war god in Norse mythology, and the gods in mythology don't have such strict, narrow definitions all the time. These definitions of these gods being of these particular certain things develops through mythology as they go from early mythology to later. They gain attributes. They gain these spheres of control, and in a fantasy setting, is that happening too? Is Selûne in the Forgotten Realms, or Odin in in your fantasy setting, or in a fantasy like something like the city-state of the Invincible Overlord and the Wilderlands of high fantasy. Odin worship is one of the gods, but there's also worship of almost any deity mentioned in gods, demigods, and heroes can be found worshipped in either city-state of the Invincible Overlord or in one of the other places. And do their attributes, where do their attributes come from? Are their attributes inherent? Are they, as worship goes to them, do they claim new portfolios as they become more powerful? Does Jupiter become the more and more a less and less a sky god, more and more a god of war, as the Romans became more and more martial, and as time went on, and did he more or less start displacing Mars as the prime god to be worshipped in times of war? And I'm not saying that that's what happened. I'm just saying, is that sort of thing going on in in your fantasy setting? Are you having similar ideas? Are the gods amorphous? And then, of course, there's the flip side. Are the gods just beings of extreme power? Something like Yog-Sothoth, or Azathoth, or Shub-Niggurath from Lovecraft, where these beings represent eternal aspects of the universe. They have their power. They're just the closest approximations we have to describing these entities that control these aspects. Yog-Sothoth being something like time, Azathoth being something like entropy, and Shub-Niggurath being something like the universal creative power, and just the constant creation. That's why she's the black goat of the wood with a thousand young. It's just something I was thinking about, and I like taking these ideas very, very seriously. And it can detract from you doing stuff that's going to be used directly at the table, which in general is the most important thing. But I think that having a knowledge of what the gods really are helps me with what they do in my setting. And to me, a lot of the deities in the Arden Fool setting, to me, seem to be egregores. They seem to be creatures created of the psyche of the worshippers, and represent aspects of the worshippers that they find admirable or terrifying or whatever. And then some deities like the truly primordial demonic creatures, or like the great old ones, or more appropriate, like the elder gods of Lovecraft, creatures that have an independent relationship, that have power independent of human worship or any sentient being worshiping them. It doesn't matter if they're worshipped; they are. And I don't know. Just something I was thinking about as I was preparing my game yesterday. About the gods. It's something I was actually thinking about all week at work. When I don't have tasks that require 100% of my focus, I often think about these sort of things, and I'm just doing this video to get some of this out and in front of people. But I don't know, this wasn't very focused, so I'm going to cut it right there. I don't know if I have too much more to add on to it, except that I hope that some people do like these videos and do subscribe. And I will probably be posting in a little while after action report for my game yesterday. And I might have more things to say about gods and the cosmology of settings, and how much fun it is for me to think about. The reason why is because I just love cosmologies. I love thinking about the cosmology of a setting, even if it's not the most productive use of my time. Thank you for watching.